Well, thank you for having me here, and I'm sorry to hear about the developments in Ireland. This is a bit more positive for Finland. You could have the theme of my presentation here saying how Swedish homeschoolers managed to continue homeschooling even when the Swedish government made it illegal for all practical purposes. Prior to 2011, homeschooling in Sweden was possible in some municipalities as a legal exception to the school obligation of the Swedish law. Swedish law has a school obligation. You have to go to school unless you can follow the exception. Still, there were never many homeschoolers in Sweden. At the time homeschooling was at its height, there was 100 children in the country of 10 million people, so that's very small. In 2008, the Swedish government suggested a new law only allowing homeschooling under exceptional circumstances. Now, we learned from a lawyer quickly that this was legal fine print for never. It was in effect forbidden. Within weeks in 2008, we founded a Swedish homeschool organization, Rohus. We worked intensely with media. We made demonstrations, we met members of parliament, we answered a government request for the consideration of the new law, but everything we said was ignored, and the new law came into effect July 1st, 2011, essentially making homeschooling illegal. I think the reason is we were simply too few. There was only about 50 families in Sweden, although we managed to collect almost all of those for a demonstration in Stockholm. What then happened is that Swedish homeschoolers left Sweden in exile to all kinds of different countries. And the same year the new law came into effect, 5 of us homeschooling families left for the Åland Islands. If you look on the map, you will see a small group of islands between Sweden and Finland in the Baltic Sea. The Åland Islands is a Swedish-speaking autonomous region of Finland, 45 kilometers or 30 miles from the Swedish coast. Finland has, as most democracy, a learning obligation by law, even in its constitution, instead of a school obligation. So this means in Finland you have to learn, but you don't need to learn in school. And as this is in the constitution, it's very well protected. And this means that homeschooling is protected well as a form of basic education. Now, the Åland Islands is a small group of islands. It's comparable in size to Oahu in Hawaii or Grand Canaria in Europe, but much fewer inhabitants, only 30,000 inhabitants in total. By being monolingual Swedish, it makes very attractive to Swedes. Finnish is, as you may know, quite a difficult language, which is very different than all other European languages. But Åland Islands has, by a special treaty since the First World War, is monolingual Swedish. So when we came there 2011 and early 2012, as 5 families, there was only one homeschool child on the Åland Islands. Although it was legal, it wasn't common. Suddenly, 5 Swedish families came with a total of 8 children of school age. The local government got a bit worried at first, and an official called the schools and asks if these children, our children, were in good care. The schools had met us and they confirmed these are good families. We talked to the official later and he told us that made him let go of any apprehension. This is a small place, one trusts one another, the lines of contact are easy and short, so this is possible there. Now today, 9 or 8 years later, there are more than 70 Swedish children being homeschooled on Åland. There's been an exile, enormous exile. We could never have imagined this when we moved here 8-9 years ago. This might not sound many, but on an island with 30,000 inhabitants and its own legislator, that makes it more homeschoolers per capita than any other country in the world, except for the United States. And the number is growing. Many Swedish families move here already when the children are preschoolers, just to be ready for when school age comes. The local inhabitants of the island, they call us with a smile and warmth, Swedish school refugees. So the Åland Island legislator accepts and even welcomes Swedish school refugees. One local politician I talked to, how can you get more coming here, is what he said. The Åland Islands, because of its relationship with Finland, very much wants Swedish-speaking people to come to ensure the Swedish language. A few years ago, the school law of the Åland Islands was revised, and I was asked to be part of the government committee to suggest a revision of the law. We met for 20 hours in total. The law on homeschooling was clarified. All the needs of the homeschoolers, key needs, were accepted, and we accepted that the authorities needed oversight. And we came to an agreement that has worked wonderfully well. Homeschooling is now an established form of learning on the Åland Islands, and it's likely one of the best regions in Europe to homeschool today. Also, the Åland Islands has among the best schools in the world. You know, Finland is good, and Åland Island is good in Finland. And in the main city of Mariehamn, it's according to locals on par with Singapore in PISA. So it's not that the Åland Island schools are bad in any way, but the school director in the main city of Mariehamn told me, we want to be best on everything, and we want to have the possibility to home educate for those who do so. If you look at Sweden again today, even during the pandemic, the school obligation is as rigid as ever, unfortunately. Even children with parents having pre-existing conditions, which puts them in the risk zone of the coronavirus, are not allowed to be homeschooled. The school will say, we understand you're concerned about your parents, but you have to come to school. Homeschooling illegally, that means alerting the Child Protective Services and heavy fines. Our family actually was fined $12,000 or 11,800 euros at the time. A collection in Sweden helped us there. The Åland Island has become a wonderful home for Swedish homeschoolers. Everyone lives within a 30-kilometer, 20-mile radius of the only city, Mariehamn. Many of us, parents and children, meet every Tuesday afternoon to play soccer together. We have a common email list to post events for anybody wanting to organize anything. Homeschool children have already made themselves visible on the island. They have won essay contests, they have won musical events, they have been actors in local plays, so they have become very visible, and in such a way, society has come to understand that homeschool children do very well. Many of the teachers doing the oversight are quite impressed with the results of homeschooling. Some even say that school have things to learn from homeschoolers. As our children grow up into adulthood, we are proud that we will have made a mark in Swedish political history forever. The families who had to flee Sweden in the early 21st century in order to home educate the children, which is a human instinct and a basic human rights, which was denied by the Swedish government. The Swedish government today is not entirely happy about this development, but there is nothing they can do about it. And so we had a very tough situation 10 years ago, and it's become something quite beautiful. Thank you.